All right, Super Bowl Sunday and myself, as I'm sure a bunch of other Hurt Bills fans as well, are still extremely irritated by the ending of that divisional game that would have brought the Bills one game closer to their first Super Bowl win in franchise history. So, after 3 weeks, the question stands: did Brandon Cooks complete the catch, or was it really an interception? My verdict, which is going to come across very biased, is that the NFL made a mistake and that the ruling of an interception was incorrect, and Brandon Cooks did complete the catch. So, the purpose of this video is to explain why I believe that and hopefully persuade some people along the way so that I can sleep better knowing I'm not crazy. So, let me start off with some context. The original argument and counter argument that most people have probably seen online is that Brandon Cooks hauls the ball in with two hands and gets a knee down, which should signify a completed catch. The counter argument to that would be that it completely ignores the third criteria for a completed catch, which is that the receiver must survive contact with the ground before a catch can be ruled as complete. This is absolutely correct. The knee down really means nothing in this case, unfortunately. As pointed out, the third criteria has not fully come into effect yet as Cooks continues his downwards momentum and is still in the process of making contact with the ground. But here's my main problem with this call. The ruling of an interception under this third criteria not being fulfilled is that the contact with the ground knocked the ball free. If you look closely, Cooks tucks the ball to his chest, which would count as his football move after the catch is completed. My problem with this is that the ball stays tucked to his chest for the initial roll of McMillan over top of him. Because this ball stays tucked for the first part of the roll, where the main ground contact occurs, this third criteria is fulfilled, and Cooks should have been ruled down on that alone. Here's where the gray area in the rules comes into play, and I will recognize that this is probably what the NFL made their final decision off of. Oftentimes, in the motion of a contested catch, if a defender comes down and all in one motion knocks the ball away, the play will be ruled as incomplete, as it usually is a signifier that the ball was not secured enough upon ground contact that the defender's initial motion was enough to knock the ball away. The rulebook is very unclear about the way that this type of play should be ruled, but I believe that because of the way McMillan rolls over top of Cooks with forward momentum, it pulls Cooks out of his original catching motion, which should constitute as McMillan ripping the ball away from Cooks after Cooks was already going down. The thing is, the rulebook doesn't actually state anything about the matter, so I believe that the ball staying tucked to his chest through ground contact should be enough to conclude that Cooks was down. McMillan rolling over him should constitute as an extra motion, an attempt to rip the ball free from a receiver that should have been ruled down by contact well before this. And to anybody trying to argue that this is a simultaneous catch, the rulebook states that in this case the ball should be awarded to the offensive player anyways, so that doesn't even matter. I think most people simply try to argue that Cooks doesn't survive the ground without actually looking at what happened on the ground. That's where the interpretation of the rules gets completely misconstrued. And I'm not making excuses. I fully acknowledge all the turnovers throughout this game from the Bills that led to this moment, but that is not the purpose of this video. I believe that the NFL did not spend enough time looking at this play and misinterpreted their own rules in an unwritten way. Hopefully some updates will be made, as I know one of the core frustrations stemming from this play is the inconsistency of this call, as we saw the very next day in the Rams-Bears game where Davante Adams was ruled down by contact. At least that's my take on it, and I'm completely open to other opinions. Feel free to leave down in the comments what your verdict is and whether I'm right or wrong in my interpretation.